Welcome to Career Spotlight presented by Educational Opportunity Centers, EOC. My name is Bill Leonard. I'm an academic specialist with EOC, and I'll be your host on this career exploration and discovery journey. The objective of Career Spotlight is to learn about careers from industry professionals in an effort to educate students and the public so they can make more informed career decisions. The career we are highlighting today is drug and alcohol counselor. I'm excited to be joined by my guest, Stephanie Weisel, drug and alcohol treatment specialist with Drug and Alcohol Treatment Service. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi.
Did I get that all right?
Yeah, it's just a little redundant, but you got it.
Excellent. So, Stephanie, we had the pleasure of working together, not too long ago before the pandemic set in, and you're doing some really great things. So why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself to our viewers who may not know you?
Okay. Well, like Bill said, my name is Stephanie. I am a primary counselor at Drug and Alcohol Treatment Service in Scranton. I've been there for about 4 years. This is my first job in the field right out of college. So I got really fortunate with that. And I'm excited to be here. Hopefully we can persuade some people to join the field.
Excellent. We do need more people. So I'm just going to jump right into it. What does a drug and alcohol counselor do? Like, what are some of their primary responsibilities?
Okay, that's a loaded question. There's a lot. Primary responsibilities, managing a caseload, typically around like 35 to 40 patients. Also running and facilitating a group, which typically we try to cap at around 10 to 12 people. There's a lot of paperwork that is involved with individual sessions and with group sessions. Everything has to be documented because it's part of a technically medical chart. There's a lot of coordination of care that we do. I think this is like sort of behind the scenes stuff. We do a lot of coordination with patients' referral sources, whether it be an attorney or a family member, probation, parole. We coordinate with services such as outreach, mental health counseling, MAT providers. There's a lot of that coordination of care, and that purpose serves to really just make sure that the patient is getting the all-around best treatment possible. It doesn't really make sense to be treating someone in only one side of them. So we really try to incorporate all sides to give the patient the best possible outcome that they could have.
Great, so very holistic.
Yeah, holistic. Yeah, that's a good word for it. So managing a caseload, doing paperwork, making phone calls, that's pretty much it.
And I guess a follow-up question amongst, maybe yourself and maybe amongst your peers, what are some people's motivations for getting into drug and alcohol counseling? I mean, is there a common thread among people you know?
I think that there is a common thread. I think for most people, in my experience and most people that I'm close with, is because we've, either personally or through our family members or our close friends have been affected by addiction in one way or another. For me, and I'm pretty open about this with my patients, I'm not personally in recovery. I don't identify as an addict or an alcoholic, but I have members of my family who are. So I think it's fair to say that I don't necessarily understand what it's like to have lived that lifestyle, but I do have a lot of respect for what the disease can do. I've seen it. I've lived through it. So for me, that was part of the influence for me. And I feel like that is a common theme throughout most of the drug and alcohol field. However, the larger umbrella, I think, for just people who want to go into human services and counseling in general is because we really just want to help people. That's really kind of what it comes down to.
Sure. Excellent. And what was your career path to becoming a drug and alcohol counselor? Like, what steps did you take?
I kind of took the long way around. So I went to Cedar Crest College in Allentown for my bachelor's degree in psychology. And then from there, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Psychology is a very broad subject, really, and you can go anywhere with that. So it wasn't until I was almost done with graduate school at Marywood University where I decided to pursue a master's degree in mental health counseling. I was very close to graduating, and I needed to do an internship. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. Truthfully, drug and alcohol treatment hadn't really crossed my mind at all. One of my classmates actually, who ended up being a supervisor in the field, suggested that I do my internship at Marworth. And I was like, I don't know, not, I really wasn't sold on it, truthfully. And then, so long story short, I ended up at Marworth, and that was truthfully, and I know this sounds a little cheesy, but that was truthfully a life-changing experience for me. I had a fantastic supervisor who, didn't judge me or, my feelings about the disease because I wasn't educated. He offered me that education, and I really threw myself into it, and I just fell in love with it. And in the meantime, still taking courses at Marywood, Kevin McLaughlin, who is the CEO of Drug and Alcohol Treatment Services, was actually one of my professors. So working with him in class and talking about our internships is actually how I ended up at DATS in the first place. So it's kind of ironic. I started this whole journey not knowing what I wanted to do, and then by the end of it, everything just fell into place so perfectly that I really feel in my heart that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's a really gratifying feeling, truthfully.
And I think this is an important point, because it sounds to me like you didn't necessarily know what your passion was in the beginning, and you found it through experimenting and trying things. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. I think there's a lot of pressure on people to sort of know what their passion is when they're 17 or 18 years old. And sometimes you need to try things.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely something even that I talk to some of my patients about. Sometimes I feel like just the way the world is nowadays, it's, you have to go to college, you have to get this degree, you have to know what it is that you want to do, because it's a long process and you don't want to be stuck in the middle of it and not know. But sometimes I feel like being in the middle of it and living your life and experiencing different things and trying. I did an internship at the Office of Youth and Family Services. I did it at Marworth. Like, you have to kind of not know in order to put yourself in these different situations for you to give yourself that opportunity, because otherwise I think you're sort of pigeonholing yourself in a way.
That's such a great
This is my dog also. I don't know if you can see this a little happening here. This is my dog.
The dog might increase the
Sorry.
viewership. That's great. So what are some potential career paths for someone who wants to become a drug and alcohol counselor? I'm thinking internships, work experience. Are those common, or are there other ones?
So there's a lot of different options, truthfully, in the realm of drug and alcohol. I would say, like, first off is going to be your internships. That's like the most prevalent, I think, because they're almost more accessible as opposed to landing down a hardcore job. But within the realm itself, you could be a primary counselor like myself, but there's also, I know at different inpatient facilities in the area, they have position for tech support. And I think those positions are geared more towards people who have specifically had a history of their own drug and alcohol use that doesn't require as much education, more so experience. So you could be a tech in an inpatient facility, a support specialist, a certified recovery specialist, a case manager, a counselor, like I said, all within the realm of drug and alcohol. So there is a lot of different opportunities.
Great.
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, yeah. And
Okay.
so thinking about, yourself and your peers in the industry, is there a typical level of education that you either are required to have or should have? I'm thinking, maybe a bachelor's degree, maybe a master's degree. Could you maybe share that with our viewers?
I would say typical is a bachelor's degree, which is a 4-year degree, usually related to psychology or social work. But like I said, some of those other positions, I believe you can get without any sort of higher education whatsoever. I think that certified recovery specialist, maybe a tech or peer support, you can get with a high school diploma or a GED equivalent. I do have my master's degree, but I believe that I most likely would have gotten the position even if I didn't have it. So you could have it. It's not going to obviously deter you from getting the position, but I think average across the board is mostly a bachelor's degree.
That's great to know. Tell us about the best part of your job. What do you absolutely love that you want to share with viewers?
There's a lot, actually. That's also a loaded question. I really love working with people, and I love getting to know people, and I love that these people who, I get to treat in my office, I most likely would never cross paths with. We live completely different lifestyles, but we're able to sit in my office and really build a relationship together. And once that trust is built and they let me into their lives and they get to learn more about me as a counselor, just watching somebody grow and sort of recognizing the things that they're doing and that they do have the power to change their lives and overcoming that helpless and hopeless feeling, just that is so gratifying, is watching people I think also being allowed to watch people grow. I think that is a really significant thing. And also doing group is so fun because the dynamics are always so different. And when one group member gives feedback to another group member and I can just sort of sit back and watch it work, that is incredibly gratifying.
Excellent. So how about some challenges that somebody coming into this industry should be aware of? Because I'm sure it's not always easy and not always fun. So
Right.
what should they know?
Okay. I was waiting for this one. I've been thinking about this. So challenges are that you have to recognize that you are not able to help everyone, and not everybody wants to be helped, and that's okay. That's just where they're at within their particular recovery process. And as a new counselor, if you try to really push somebody in the direction that you think they need to go, well, that takes the autonomy away from the patient, and that's not what you want to do. So recognizing that you can only work with someone as much as they want to be helped, if that makes sense.
Sure, absolutely.
Also, recognizing that not everything is as it seems. This is something that I struggled with a little bit being a new counselor. I was young, I was right out of college, coming into group with a lot of patients who have had a significant history of treatment experience prior to sitting with me. And they're frustrated and they're angry and they're mad and they're not really wanting to be talking to you. I, for a long time, really took that personally. And I thought, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to help these people? They know more about addiction than I do. What am I going to say to them? And I really, thought that it was something with me. But again, things are not always as they seem. A lot of times when a patient comes in and is frustrated and is angry, it's truthfully because there's a lot of fear involved in addiction and recovery. Because when you really think about it, going from addiction and that lifestyle that you live into recovery, a lot of times people don't know how to survive in recovery. It's like stepping into a completely different planet, and there's a lot of fear there. And now here I am going to tell you all this stuff and what you need to do. It's intimidating to the patient. You're changing their entire life, so of course they're going to push back with anger. But being able to recognize that as a counselor and know that it's not me, and learning how to work with that resistance to get something beneficial out of it, that would have been so helpful to know day one.
Sure. And how about continuing education? Is it required within this field? Because I know a lot of people think, I go to college and then when I'm done sort of learning, but a lot of professions do require continuing education. So what can you say about being a drug and alcohol counselor and needing to continuously, improve your, education?
So it is something that is required. I know it depends on the type of certification or license or degree, like qualifications that you have. For me, I'm a licensed professional counselor, so that requires that I get a very specific amount of continuing education credits throughout the years. I know the nationally certified counselors, they have a different amount. Licensed social workers, licensed clinical social workers, I think the technical hour amount depends on what your license carries or what the requirement is, but it is something that's very important. Even at DATS specifically, we have very specific first year trainings that we have to get done within our first year of employment, and then moving forward you want to expand on your skill set, so it kind of branches out the longer that you're in the field. In the beginning you're doing sort of basic things, confidentiality, ethics, case management, whereas farther into your career you could take trainings on different modalities, different treatment methods, different group things. So it is required, but there is a lot of different courses that you can take. There's a lot of different availability and different ways to obtain those things.
Great. And you mentioned skills in your answer. So are there some, common people skills or technical skills that a drug and alcohol counselor should be proficient in, based upon your experience?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost is you have to be, I don't know if open-minded would be a skill, but I think you'd have to be an open-minded people person. My job is to literally talk to people. So if I don't have just general people skills, or if I don't know how to carry on a conversation, it's going to make the job a lot harder. But it also goes a little bit deeper than that. And this is something that I remember learning in school, is just basic, being genuine, just really being real with the client. That's something that I'm really big on, is I try to be so real with my patients, because I feel like you can tell when someone is being genuine with you or when they're not. So just being able to be that genuine sort of person. And also unconditional positive regard is something that they teach us in school as well. So, and that kind of goes hand in hand with being open-minded. You know, as a counselor, you're going to sit with people who are just like you, people who are kind of like you, people who remind you of somebody, or people who you would never think that you'd be sitting in the same room with. And what it all boils down to is, this is a person who's coming to you for help. So you need to have that unconditional positive regard and be genuine and be honest with them and respect where they're coming from. So I think a lot of those things just kind of come with, you know, being a decent human being. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Absolutely.
But just really those sort of basic people, human interaction skills are what is going to make this job easier.
And it sounds like empathy and listening skills too.
Yes, those are, yeah, I should have said those too. Yeah.
So, you know, what is the one thing you now know about being a drug and alcohol counselor that you wish you knew, you know, when you started about 4 years ago in this profession?
I've been thinking about this. This is a really hard question. I feel like there's so much that I wish I knew. I wish I knew that I wanted to be a drug and alcohol counselor way before all of this started. I wish I knew that, you know, things are not always going to go the way that you think they're going to go in session. And sometimes things can go a little bit sideways, and there's going to be crises, and you're going to have to seek supervision, and that's okay. Knowing that you don't have to have the answer, I think, is something else that I really struggled with in the beginning was, you know, and as you said earlier, being a good listener. Being a good listener means that you're being present and you are hearing people talk to you as they're actually talking to you. You're not thinking in your head about, okay, what am I going to say next? I need to have a response for this person, otherwise I'm not doing my job. That is so not true. It is, I wish I knew in the beginning that it was okay to say, you know, listen, I hear what you're telling me, and this is a really heartbreaking or difficult or tragic situation that you're in, and I truly don't know what to say. I wish I knew that it was okay to say that 4 years ago. Because, and again, that just goes with being genuine and being real with the person. And I think that knowing that I'm not always going to have the answers, but I can find out a way to get them, I wish I knew that in the beginning, as opposed to, you know, I'm supposed to know all of these things, and I'm a bad counselor if I don't say the perfect right thing that this person needs to hear at this time. That's not real life, you know. So I wish I knew that counseling could be more realistic, I guess, as opposed to straight out of the textbook with always knowing what to say next. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm going to, you know, let you just sort of speak to our viewers who are maybe considering a career in human services, social services, counseling, psychology. Is there anything else you would like them to know about your profession, you know, drug and alcohol counselor?
I guess that it would be good to know that this is a hard job, and you're not always going to have good days, and people are not always going to like you. People are not always going to kind of vibe with your counseling style, because every counselor has a different style, but it is worth it. It is so worth it, even for the patients who really struggle and, you know, might just be going through a hard time. You feel that too. So it is a really hard job, but also rewarding, because sometimes when people do make it and they succeed and they're so solid in their recovery and they have these breakthroughs and these aha moments, it's kind of like, okay, we are making progress. And even though, and that's what they say, progress, not perfection. So just be very mindful of that it's going to take a while and it might not stick every time, but that's okay. And it's worth it, I think. So if you want to, if you're thinking about a job in this field, I would say go for it.
That's a great message. So Stephanie, on behalf of Educational Opportunity Centers, I want to thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your knowledge, and your passion for drug and alcohol counseling. I know I learned a lot. It was very enlightening, and I'm sure our viewers did too. So again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Stephanie. You take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.